Welcome back to Something in the Wilderness. My name's Steve, and each week I pick a song by Andrew McMahon from throughout his career, and I talk about it. This week I'm lucky enough to have Wingman Steve and Chris-183 from a pop punk dad's podcast called High School Never Ends, which is right up my alley, I gotta say. I love pop punk music, and I'm a dad, so it's perfect for me. Steve and Chris, welcome to the show.
Steve, thanks for having us, man. It's cool to be on here.
Yeah, definitely cool.
Thanks for coming. I've been enjoying your guys' show for a while. So I think I've been listening for a year now, and I really love the episodes where you guys go through, every album by some of my personal favorite bands, and I get to go back and listen to the entire discography with a whole new perspective. So can you guys tell us a little bit about how you got started in it?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, it all started with a phone call one evening from either text message or phone call. I always get it wrong. Steve always corrects me, but that's okay. In my mind, it was a phone call. Basically, we chit-chatted. We were friends. We worked together. And one night he called me and basically just said, hey, we were talking about podcasting, and I had this microphone. I used to do it. And we had talked about pop punk, throughout the time that we knew each other. And I think he just said, look, do you want to give this a go with something that we love? And that's pop punk music. And what do you think? And I said, absolutely. So I'm probably missing some details. Steve, you want to fill in the blanks?
I mean, if you're just doing a 30,000-foot view, that's exactly what happened. That particular evening, I was host to a bunch of free wine because I was staying at a hotel, and the power was out. And so the only thing, I was texting with Chris, and we were just chatting, and yeah, I remember he used to do some sort of podcast, and he would always say you should come on my show, but you need to get a microphone. And I don't know, I just asked him, hey, you still doing that? And he's like, no, I'm not. And then as kind of a drunken idea, it was like, hey man, we should do a podcast. And then it just grew from there, and then we actually did it. And yeah, it's been going for like a year and a half now, something like that.
Yeah. That's super cool that you guys share a passion for something and can put it to a podcast. So I know you guys do album reviews or album overviews, let's say. Then you do an overview of an entire discography at times, and you even do spotlights on newer artists as well. I just really enjoy it all. So thank you guys for doing that.
Yeah, we try and mix up the content. It kind of started off as one idea, and then it just branched out. It started off as let's talk about nostalgic pop punk bands that we love from the early 2000s. Then people started reaching out and saying, hey, I'm playing pop punk now. Can we come and talk? And then we started having guests on, and Chris came up with an idea. Why don't, instead of doing the whole band discography, maybe some episodes we do just an album, go through it track by track.
That was because of overwork. That's why. I was like, let's just do one album this time.
Seems a little easier.
It can be tough. We're like, all right, let's do The Offspring now. They only have 10 studio albums.
Right.
Let's listen to all of them a million times to make sure we know what we're talking about.
Smart idea when you broke up the MXPX episode into 4 parts, or 4 people distributed across. So
that was our MXPX draft episode. That was like a fantasy baseball draft kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I like that theme. Well, today we picked a song that I thought was fitting for you guys. So Steve and I had reached out to each other because they were doing an episode about an Andrew McMahon album. They were doing an album spotlight. I submitted just a quick audio clip of me talking about my favorite songs from that album. That's kind of how we connected. And then Steve mentioned that you guys would be interested in coming on this podcast. That's where we are today. So we came up with a song that I thought was fitting. So we're going to be talking about one of Andrew's most well-known songs from his very first band, since he recently dedicated an entire episode to that album that it's from. And I think people who were around for those early 2000s, the Drive-Thru Records era, the Warped Tour era, paid attention to all that, are going to be pretty familiar with this one. The band is Something Corporate. It was originally track 3 on the Audio Boxer EP, released on October 2nd, 2001, but is better known as track 2 on Leaving Through the Window, released on May 21st, 2002. We're talking about the song Punk Rock Princess. It was the second of 3 singles off of that album, and it never charted in the US like the other 2, but it did chart a little bit in the UK. But I think Something Corporate fans look at this one as a hit, and I don't know if anybody outside the Something Corporate, Andrew McMahon circle sees it that way. So what do you guys think? Was this a hit, or was it just like a genre fan favorite or something?
I don't think anything from this album was any sort of hit at all. But as you had mentioned, 2001 and 2 and 3, this is prime time Drive-Thru Records. And for us, we're in high school, maybe early college, and I mean, I was just enthralled with everything Drive Through Records.
Uh-huh.
But I think if you didn't really like pop punk or you weren't into like, the Warped Tour, I don't think you had any idea what Something Corporate was.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I think that if you weren't engulfed in the scene, like if you weren't just in it. So I love this kind of music. I was a little bit more on the fringe, and I can tell you that this is not necessarily a song that came into my radar. I mean, obviously there are a lot of songs out there. It really just depends on what you consider a hit, right?
Right.
If you consider a hit something somebody could hear that doesn't own every pop punk album or is in the scene, then I don't know if this qualifies for that.
Those of us who are hardcore Andrew McMahon fans, we probably see the catalog a little bit differently than somebody outside of that world. So,
Steve, the other two tracks that you had mentioned that had some traction, is that what? Woke Up in a Car and
Yep.
Hurricane? Or is it I Want to Save You? What?
I Woke Up in a Car and If You See Jordan.
If You See Jordan. Okay. That
Yeah.
one, I love that one. I love them all. It's all good.
So we were talking, before we started recording, we were talking about how I went to the Andrew McMahon and Wilderness shows in Detroit or Pontiac, Michigan over the weekend, and he actually played that song both nights, which is kind of a surprise. That's not one I expected. That's one of his very first songs he ever written.
Yeah, I think maybe the reason I like these guys is because I had a friend named Jordan, and I would just taunt him, and I would scream the naughty lyrics at him.
Yeah,
whenever
the final
he walked,
lyrics, yeah.
Whenever he walked into my dorm room in college, and that's maybe how I got hooked. That could have been.
Well, you can tell him that hundreds of people were screaming that on Friday and Saturday night. So
He'll appreciate it.
Did you guys consider yourself Something Corporate fans back in the day? So, Chris, you said that you were really kind of outside of that, at least Something Corporate back then. How about you, Steve? Were you actually a Something Corporate fan?
Yeah. I don't know, man. Drive Through Records as a record label was the first one that like got its hook in me, and I loved almost everything on there, including Something Corporate. I definitely had the Audio Boxer EP. Before Leaving Through the Window came out, got Leaving Through the Window. To be honest with you, like I've spoken to people that like love the North record, and they've said that that's like their favorite album. I did not dig that one as much. Maybe it's just where I was in my life, but yeah, I consider myself a Something Corporate fan, a Jack's Mannequin fan, and an Andrew McMahon and the Wilderness fan too. A little bit less so. Obviously, his. The way that his songs are put together now are a little bit different. They're for a different audience. They're composed differently.
Yep.
I mean, he's on, I call it mainstream alternative radio or indie radio. It's like if you happen to have an alternative station in your city, which I do, he's on there all the time.
Is he really?
Yeah, I mean,
I haven't listened to the radio in years. I listen to Spotify. I put it on in my car when I get in. I listen to it on my, Alexa's at home. I never listen to the radio, so I don't even know what's on the radio. And that's why it's hard for me to gauge. Like, I don't know. Do people even know who Andrew McMahon is these days unless they're a fan?
I think some do. So at least in Philadelphia, it used to be called Radio 104.5, and now it's called Alt 104.5. It's like what rock used to be. It's like Imagine Dragons, and then they have Andrew McMahon and like Group Love, and every now and then they'll throw in like Blink-182 and Yellow Card, but it's mostly like indie-ish rock. I think.
Yeah, pop rock.
Not to sidetrack the conversation, but just real quick, why do you think, because this came out in the heyday of this type of music, I mean, obviously there were a ton of bands at this time that were coming out, and this was really popular. Why do you think that they didn't necessarily break into the mainstream a little bit more? I mean, this was a great album.
I don't know why. Newfound Glory was absolutely blowing up at the time. That was the summer of Good Charlotte as well. So those guys were doing so well. And I felt like Something Corporate was just under the radar. In fact, so the bands I just named, I saw them all at Warped Tour that year. It was Newfound Glory and Good Charlotte that everybody was crowding around to see. Something Corporate was just kind of, I caught them in passing. I was fortunate enough to catch them in passing, and that's how I found out about them. I probably would have found out about them eventually anyway, just because I went to all those shows and whatnot. But I don't know. I don't know the answer why they never broke like the other guys did. So
my just a 2 cents on it is that maybe there was just only so much pop punk, if you will, and I think Something Corporate's a little bit different. They're like piano pop punk, piano or whatever. I think the piano is a main part of it, and I don't know, man. The Good Charlotte and Blink-182 and Sum 41, maybe they just sucked up all the airtime and there just wasn't enough left over for the rest of them. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that was it. Well, this song, and as well as the whole album, was produced by Jim Wirt, and he produced all of Something Corporate's albums, actually. The album was really just a conglomerate of songs they'd already recorded, songs they've been playing for years, and then a few brand new ones they had just written and put all on their first major label debut, basically. It was recorded between January and March of 2002. You've got Andrew on vocals, Josh Partington and William Tell on guitar, Kevin Page on the bass, and Brian Ireland on the drums. So when you guys first heard this album, whether it was 18 years ago or last year, was this a standout track? Was Punk Rock Princess a standout track?
Yes, 100% for me.
Okay.
Definitely.
For me, no, it was not. It definitely was a secondary listen for me. I skipped past it for other things.
Do you feel like this represented the album as a whole well?
I don't know. It's a little bit cheesy. I think it fits with some of the other albums. Some of the other songs. It fits with like Hurricane. This is like the pop punk like single, if you. I think it fits with like, I Want to Save You, I Woke Up in a Car. Some of the ballads obviously are a little bit different. Some of these songs are a little bit deep. But I mean, how old is Andrew when he writes these songs? Is he 17, 18? I mean, he's a kid.
Yep. He was in high school,
and he goes through a lot of life stuff. After this is done. But I don't know, for me, being a high school kid or a college kid who never really, I never dated a girl who like loved the same music as I did. I probably have dated a couple of girls who would like acquiesce and listen. Oh, you want to put on Brand New or Newfound Glory? All right, I'll listen to that for a minute. But I never dated a girl who was like in the scene, like into the same stuff. And this song is like the song where it's like the culmination of, if you'd be my punk rock princess, I'd be your garage band king. It's like, this is who I am. This is the music that I listen to. And you don't have to be it. But if you would listen to it, if you would like it, that would make everything like really cool. And yeah, I apologize how many girls I may have made listen to this song and maybe sang it but that's kind of what it was for me. This was like an introduction. This is an introductory pop punk track, especially to a relatively new partner that you're hanging out with.
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing because I could just imagine you like in a car just putting this on. Like, hey, you need to listen to this. Like, and then like bouncing your head while it's on and kind of mouthing the words to her and her just staring back at you and saying, What?
I think this is more of like, here's a mix CD and this is like track 4, It's like a subtle, like you need to pick up on this hint that I'm throwing out there. There's like track 4 on the mix CD. Not like a, hey, listen to this kind of thing. Or maybe
a little bit more subtle.
Yeah.
A little bit more subtle.
I see a lot of comments on their YouTube videos, like for the video and, live versions and things where people are like, this was our song back in 2002. This was my boyfriend's and mine. This is my girlfriend's and my song. And, she was the punk rock princess. I was the garage band king, like all that kind of stuff. And I remember on MySpace how many people had that on their profile, that line on their profile,
Yeah, that's the one who's the one Warped Tour kid, and then who's trying to go after the other one who's not a Warped Tour kid. Doesn't matter if it's the boy or the girl, but that's exactly what it was, and that's what it was for me. And along with there's so many good tracks on. You consider Audio Boxer and Leaving Through the Window, but I remember some of the first tracks that I got into. Punk Rock Princess, If You See Jordan, and Hurricane for sure, and that's yeah.
I think it's relatable though. I don't know if it's I don't think it's the premier song off the album or representative of what the album is, but I think that it's just formulaic, and the fact that it's really catchy and it's relatable, like you just said. I mean, there's a ton of people in that position that can sing along to this song and want to sing along to it many, many, many times, whether it be in their head, laying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'm going to get this girl that's probably never going to talk to me, or whatever the case is.
Like a lot of the songs of that era, right? So according to Setlist FM, this song's been played live 230 times total. And more than half of those times has been played in the Wilderness era, actually. But I have to believe it was probably played at every single Something Corporate show back in the day, because, like I said, it was one of the first songs. That and If You See Jordan were some of the first songs he ever wrote. They were just like crowd pleasers at Something Corporate concerts. Both times I remember seeing them back then. In a 2019 interview with Entertainment Tonight, he had this to say about Punk Rock Princess. I like doing Punk Rock Princess acoustically a lot. For me, it's a little bit more emotionally connected that way, but it's also just fun for the audience who hasn't really gotten to see us play some of those older songs that were like very young and just kind of simple rock, kind of supercharged moments. It felt like a good time to resurrect it and put it back in the set list. I really do appreciate that he mixes older songs with the new songs. He kind of appeals to all audiences from his last 20 years of music. I mentioned I just saw him over the weekend twice. He played 3 Something Corporate songs, probably 7 or 8 Jack's Mannequin songs. I think the Jack's Mannequin was equal to the Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness era, actually. Now, I know you guys are fans of live music from listening to your show. So have you guys seen any of Andrew's bands, Something Corporate or the others?
Yeah, I'll go first because I have a little bit less experience with it. So I only saw him one time, and this is the opening act for a Weezer show that I really wanted to see. And this is kind of the first foray into listening to this band. So at that point in time, a couple years back, I didn't know them. And, when you don't know a band and you see them live, sometimes things catch you, but most of the time you just kind of don't connect. What I can tell you from what I remember is that I remember there was a ton of energy. He had the piano out. I just remember a lot of people were into it. Not a ton, but a lot of people were into it, singing his song, singing along. They even got one of those big parachutes out in the crowd, and people were like getting in the middle of it and bouncing up and down. And I thought that was pretty cool, right? But
yeah.
I wish I could go back and listen to it again. Now that I've been a little bit more immersed in the music, I think I would have a different perspective.
Okay.
He's coming to Pittsburgh soon.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, in October. McKees, isn't it? Is that what the town is called? Or
The Roxy Theater, I think that's what it's
Okay.
called. Yeah, the
All right.
McKees Rocks,
Okay.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, when back in the day, I wish that I saw Something Corporate more times. I never saw Jack's Mannequin. I saw Something Corporate one time, and it was at Warped Tour. I'm pretty sure it was 2002, and they had the Drive Thru Records stage. And he did something that I could never, ever, ever, ever forget seeing. And he lit his piano on fire and then started stomping on it.
wow.
Yeah,
I never saw that.
I want to say it was during If You See Jordan, because I can see him at the end of that song where it's like ding, 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 and he's like stomping on the piano. But I'm not sure about that. But I had tickets to go see the Something Corporate like reunion show that happened sometime around 2010 or 11.
10 or 11, yeah.
I bought 2 tickets, didn't have really anybody to go with, and then I met this girl, and things really hit it off with her, and she invited me to go to a wedding and with her first time, and it was the same day as the Something Corporate show.
Oh, no.
And I sold the tickets, and I ended up marrying her, so it worked out.
Oh, okay.
It worked out well.
Then it's okay.
Yeah, if that didn't end up happening, it would have been a missed opportunity, but I can't say it was bad. And then the two of us together went to kind of a festival show. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago, 1819 summer show. The local Philly radio station loves Andrew McMahon, and they had him as part of their, like, I don't know if it was a birthday show or something. So he did like a 35, 40-minute set. And Chris, like you mentioned, they did like the big parachute. Andrew McMahon ends up like, he throws his huge inflatable duck in the crowd and then jumps on the duck and it's like kind of crowd surfing on an inflatable duck. Tons of energy. So I've only, I guess, seen him twice. I feel like I've seen him a million times because of his like Instagram lives, but I think I've only seen him twice, but I got to remedy that and do a few more times coming up.
Is he coming to Philly, do you know?
No, he's skipping us this time, Chris. Chris
Wow.
always gets upset because he thinks that the big acts only come to Philly and New York and not Pittsburgh. But this particular time is not the case. He will be in Pittsburgh and not in Philadelphia.
That's really surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe he'll add a date or come back or something. We'll see.
Yeah. I heard you mention the live streams that Andrew did last year. So, Chris, I'm not sure if you're aware, but he did some drive-in shows last summer and then into the fall, and he live streamed one of those shows. So, fans got to watch it on the website if you paid for it. And then he did a lot of stuff on Instagram, so that's kind of how he kept connected to the fans, and we kept connected to him. He would tell stories and then play his songs on a piano. It was pretty cool.
It was so much more than that, though, because this is like April of 2020 when the pandemic like really started, like it hit and everything was like real lockdown. I mean, I don't know, everybody's state is different, but like it was national lockdown time. And just to see him once a week, sometimes more than once a week during this like crazy time, like he would literally just fire up Instagram and Facebook, him and his piano. You see his daughter in the background, like coming and giggling. His wife is there. He would make a specialty cocktail and teach people how they made it. And he would just do whatever. He would, I think he asked for requests for like the next one. He wasn't taking requests like a jukebox for the day. But yeah, my wife would be like that guy who's always on your phone. She was either talking about Andrew McMahon or Chris Rowe because the two of them were always just doing these live streams. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they were fantastic. And I didn't see the Punk Rock Princess one because it was a short one, but Steve, you sent that over to us, and as you had mentioned, he does it totally different. It's a lot sweeter of a song. It's less gritty, and it's less cheesy, I think, when he does it that way.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I really enjoyed that version of it too. And I was fortunate enough over this past weekend to meet Andrew for the first time. He's just hanging out outside the show talking to people. He's a really genuine, nice dude. I thanked him for those Instagram live streams. I said they really helped me get through the pandemic. And he said, you know what? That was really good for my mental health as well. He said, I did it as much for me as I did for the fans.
It's awesome.
He's just a good dude, man. I don't know. I feel like he's like my friend. He's not my friend. Andrew does not know me, but I don't know. I just feel like he's a down to earth guy, and he's.
You need the T-shirt. There's a T-shirt that says Andrew McMahon is my homeboy.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
I got in the thick of the pandemic. And he did all this stuff for like his crew because, you know, he's probably well off enough that he could go a little bit of time without steady income. I don't know that for sure, but he'd sold all this merch and like part of it went back to his crew. So I got, you know, those wash your hand signs where it would be like the lyrics to a song like Happy Birthday. So in my bathroom, I have one of the lyrics of Constantine. It was a Father's Day or a birthday gift last year from my wife. And so in our powder room bathroom, that's, you know, you're supposed to wash your hands for the whatever it is 20 seconds so you can sing Constantine along with it.
So now your wife and kids will know the lyrics to Constantine as well, and you can all sing along together.
That would be nice. I mean, if any of them could learn like a 9.5 minute song like Constantine, that would be epic. It'd be like that scene from Step Brothers where they sing Guns N' Roses in the car, except a lot more emotional.
My family knows Cecilia and the Satellite pretty well, but I don't know if the kids will ever pay attention long enough to hear the whole song through Constantine. So
my daughter, so Cecilia was a close second to what we were going to name our daughter. Very, very close. It was a close second.
Nice. Cool.
I'll tell you what, I'll pull back the curtain. This was one of the albums that we really wanted my daughter, my 17-year-old daughter, to listen to and give her thoughts on because she had never heard this before. So she didn't get a chance to that week. There was an issue. She was sick or there was a test. But we want to come back to it. So I'm really curious about what she feels about this. 17, teenagers now, like, what do they think about this type of music? So we're definitely going to come back to that at some point in time.
I would be really curious to know the answer. So make sure you follow up in your show about that, and I'll come back for it. So I know that this is a song, and this is another reason I asked if you thought this was maybe a hit in the scene earlier, because I know when there's a band that tours around the United States. They're called the Emo Band, and they play a whole pop punk set. People can sign up to sing along with them, and they don't have a lead singer. It's the audience that sings. I've heard you guys talk about the Emo Band before, so I want to know, have either of you guys ever sang Punk Rock Princess?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Steve, why don't you start this off? Because
the Emo Band guys are amazing, and the concept is amazing. And they tour the Northeast, back before the pandemic, whatever. And I think they're going to come back. And yeah, you could be the lead singer, and it's only pop punk and emo and screamo music. I think there's two. I know Punk Rock Princess and maybe Hurricane is on their set list because there's only a finite amount of songs that you can sing. They're on like a 70-song list when you get there or on their website, theemoband.com.
We had tickets to go. I had never been, and the tickets were for March of 2020.
Oh, no.
We were going to go together, yeah.
So we did not go.
Oh, you guys are both going to go together.
We were.
I've been like 4 or 5 times solo. Well, not solo, but Chris and I live on opposite sides of Pennsylvania, so it's not right around the corner. So I've been in Philly to Emo Band 4 or 5 times, but they're local to Pittsburgh, and so I was going to go there, and we were going to have like a High School Never Ends show moment, but it didn't work out. But
I can sing this. I can sing Andrew McMahon. I think I'm very confident.
I sang this song. So the first time I went to Emo Band, I did the starting line, Best of Me, and I did Jimmy Eat World of Priest chorus. I'm so nerdy that I'm like the first person to show up in line when the doors open because like if there's a song I want to sing, I got to be the person to sign up. I'll go first. I don't care. I don't have the jitters about that. But so the second time I go, I want to do Punk Rock Princess, right? So I put it in. I think maybe I was second that time. Someone got there before me, or but I was close to the front. And actually, Shane, the lead singer from Valencia, was the guest host. And so he announces me to come on stage. And it's not necessarily the hardest song to sing, but the verses in the beginning, they're very low when you sing them, right? And so it can be hard to project a low voice over full-blown instruments behind you. So it can kind of be hard to hear it. So like maybe when the room is, it kind of comes off low. But then when the chorus comes in, you feel like a bona fide rock star, because then you're screaming and now everyone's singing along because they all know that. So it's a great song. I don't know that I would pick it to do it again.
Yeah.
Maybe I would. I don't know. We'll see. It felt good for me.
I'm a karaoke guy myself, but I have a very specific range. And my range does not include the chorus part. I've tried it on my own, and I'm like, no, I can't go from that low up to that high. I'm more of a like Gin Blossoms, Better Than Ezra, a lot of 90s stuff. I can do a little bit of Jimmy Eat World, not the high stuff. I recently did What I Got by Sublime, and that was a lot of fun. So I don't know how well I did, but that was fun to sing, that's for sure.
My question was, what was your go-to? Like, if we were going to give you a mic right now, like, what is your go-to karaoke song?
So it's 867-5309, or it's Hey Jealousy by the Gin Blossoms. Yeah, all through college and well beyond. It's kind of like people who've been to karaoke with me kind of know I'm going to do one of those two or both in addition to whatever else I do. So
cool.
There's a local karaoke joint not too far from here. It doesn't get that busy on Wednesday and Thursday nights, so there have been times in past years where me and a friend or maybe two friends could be the only people singing all night.
That's awesome.
You get to kind of try out new material, and
yeah, just like tonight's the night I'm going to try Meatloaf. Tonight I'm going to sing Meatloaf, and that's just the end of it, and see how that goes.
Yeah, I like I said, I don't stray too far out of my range, but I kind of have an idea of what I can do and what I can't.
My go-to is always Eve 6 Inside Out for years.
Okay.
And then, you try. There's one that I always really wanted to do, and then I went for my birthday, and I was like, I really want to do Cake, short skirt, long jacket. And then I get up there, and I'm like, this is the most boring song to sing ever. Like, nobody cares that I'm singing this song. I need to end it immediately.
I like that, that whole scene of music from the 90s. I don't know that song.
Oh, really? It's good. It's a great song.
Now I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit of the songwriting notes here. So in that same 2019 Entertainment Tonight interview I mentioned earlier, Andrew had this to say: the chorus is obviously a little bit campy, but I still sort of connect to the general sentiment of songs like that, and it was a love song. I was a kid, and I legitimately played in like this indie rock band in high school. And at the time, the girl that I was interested in, well, she liked punk music, and so it was almost like a really great metaphor for what was a constant disparity in our relationship, which was she was cooler than I was because she liked punk, and I was like this squirrely kid in a piano band. So it kind of references back to what you were talking about earlier, Steve, with the and even you mentioned this, Chris, like the kind of pining for the girl, and this is the song you think of when you like that punk rock girl. And I was dating girls who weren't into punk, kind of like what you guys said earlier, like girls who were into very different type of music than I was, and I had to kind of, hey, try this song, hey, listen to something corporate, listen to Found Glory, and they were like, whatever.
Is Punk Rock Princess, and this just popped in my head. Do you guys think that maybe this is like the male version of like Skater Boy by Avril Lavigne?
Hey, it came out officially came out the same year, the two albums, so.
No? Chris is shaking his head like, I can't believe you said that. I think...
No, I can believe you say that because that's on my list. That's on my list. Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
That's a joke, but I don't know. I think it's similar, though. Mm-hmm. I think it's similar, right? But it's all in the way that you perceive the song. But now that I know what Andrew McMahon thinks the song is, because I didn't know that, I kind of throws out my other theory completely. So I guess I'll just kind of scratch that out because I'm
kind of curious now what
something else. Well, I was going to save it until we talk about maybe the video or get into that section. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, in another interview I read, he said he's always tried to write what he's doing or seeing or feeling in the moment, and we kind of already talked about this, but he's a very different person now than he was 20 years ago. So the songs he writes now are nothing like this. He writes songs about his daughter. He writes songs about the struggles of marriage. He writes songs about just kind of being out with friends as a guy in his mid-30s, late 30s. And he writes songs about getting older. And, like all of us would if we were singer-songwriters, right? We're not writing the stuff that we would be writing in high school. If I had stuff recorded that I wrote in high school, nobody would want to hear it. It would be embarrassing. So
it would be a worse version of Punk Rock Princess.
There you go. Exactly. Shifting to the sound of the song, I would say this was definitely their pop punk anthem. See, I personally don't think this song was representative of their sound as a whole. There was a handful of songs that were like this, but they had the whole range. They had the piano ballad, kind of the mid-tempo stuff, and that North album they released afterward was really more of the mid-tempo stuff and less of this sort of thing. But I really think this is why they got put into that pop punk genre. Hurricane was a good example. If You See Jordan, Punk Rock Princess, and there's a handful of other ones on that album. Space was about as minor of a hit as Punk Rock Princess on their next album, and that was also kind of that genre. But yeah, I think this is the song that took them to Warped Tour. This is the song that took them on the road with Newfound Glory and that sort of thing. What do you guys think?
I would agree with that. I think Leaving Through the Window is a pop punk album. I don't that it definitely is. Half the songs are kind of like this, and the other half aren't. Look at the videos. Look at the Warped Tour footage. I mean, he's rocking around. He's smashing his piano. I mean, this was piano punk rock, just like Yellow Card was violin punk rock.
Violin punk rock, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you there. It's offshoots of the pop punk scene. This was one way that a couple bands went. Stray Light Run was another one that incorporated a piano, who I saw open for Something Corporate way back when, too.
That's a great show.
Yeah, it was.
It's just such a broad genre, and it can be so many different things. So yeah, I don't know. Like I listened to this album. I don't know if I necessarily 1,000% agree with Wingman Steve on this. I mean, I think it definitely is a little bit. It's different enough in my opinion where it doesn't sound like pop punk at that time that you would consider in your head like Blink-182 Newfound Glory. I don't think I hear that as enough to categorize this album as one that sits besides those, but I don't think you need to do that. I don't think you need to do that. I think, again, it fits into the scene for the songs that it has, and it gives you a little bit of a mix of something different like you guys talked about. So I think all in all, yeah, I mean, I think it has some pop punk to it, but for the most part, I think it might be kind of like its own thing, a little bit different.
This is the most pop punk he's ever been, though. I mean, so if you look at the album itself, I Want to Save You, Punk Rock Princess, I Woke Up in a Car, If You See Jordan, Hurricane, Fall, Drunk Girl, those are pop punk songs. That's half the album. So the other half shows off his range. And then one thing that I love about Andrew McMahon throughout his entire career is you just can literally see the evolution. You can see the evolution, or you can hear the evolution between Something Corporate to Jack's Mannequin to In the Wilderness. I mean, it's incredible.
In fact, a lot of fans, including myself, have this theory that you can hear the evolution between each and every album.
He was able to kind of follow that progression the way that he wanted to and the way that he felt was the right way to go, and wasn't under as much stress to quote unquote, pump out hits or something that, the mainstream would want to hear per se. That could be totally off base, but I was just thinking that.
One comment he's made throughout those live streams about his past with record labels is that unfortunately he's been on so many different ones that he really doesn't have control over his past catalog. And so they can release, CDs, cassettes, vinyl, whatever. It's in so many, his stuff is owned by so many different entities. All right, well, let's talk lyrics. I mean, like we've said, you can kind of tell this was written by a teenager, right? Are there any specific lyrics that jump out at you guys?
I think for me, the second half of the chorus is the part that really excites me. When he, I guess it's just the vocal stylings. If I could be your first real heartache, I would do it over again. If you could be my punk rock princess, I would be your heroine. And the term heroine can always be interpreted or misinterpreted with two different songs. Like the version of a hero, or are we talking about drugs? Which we're not talking about drugs, but when you're talking about punk rock, maybe you're talking about drugs. So I think that's probably. The chorus is really what the way the song is constructed is. It's like calm. I mean, it starts off with obviously that heavy guitar riff. So heavy guitar riff, calm, explosive chorus. And so I think the explosive chorus, and especially the second half of it, is probably, I guess, my favorite if I were to have to say something.
I really enjoy the way the lyrics kind of break down with the maybes in this song, because I think of it like a guy that's, and if you see it from the way of obviously a guy that's really trying to connect with his crush or the girl that he wants to be with, you put yourself in that position, and maybe it's just me specifically, but you go over so many different scenarios in your head of what the perfect timing is for me to do this, me to do that, or what could happen here that I could have an in to talk to her, or hey, maybe if that happens, then I can definitely. And so the maybe, he says maybe 12 times. It's just so cool that it's just like it's going through your head, like, okay, if this happens, then maybe I can say this, or maybe when your eyes, and I don't know if. I was kind of confused about maybe when your hair gets darker, maybe when your eyes get wide. And I don't know. I didn't get that as much, but You kind of get what I'm saying.
You like the
yeah.
unsurety of it. Maybe
unsurety, new word for the podcast.
Yeah, I didn't realize that he said maybe 12 times. There's a couple lines that I noted that did have the word maybe, and it didn't occur to me how much he actually says that. I like the irony in the verses. Maybe when the room is empty, maybe when the bottle's full, maybe when the door gets broke down, love can break in. And my favorite line of the whole song is right before the first chorus, maybe when I'm done with endings, this can begin. So I like that, but I didn't realize how many times I was even noting the word maybe while I was writing those down. So I agree with what Andrew said, that the lyrics are pretty campy, specifically in the chorus, but it's like Steve said, it's such a great sing-along song. The chorus is the catchiest part of the song by far. If you could be my punk rock princess, I would be your garage band king. I think I've seen people that have that tattooed on them. Like I said, I feel like it was the MySpace quote of the year in 0203 type of time frame. And Steve, you brought up a point I wanted to elaborate on, and that's or ask you guys about the heroin line. I don't know. People have argued about this. Now, if you look up the lyrics on Google, I think it spells it out, heroine, as in the female version of a hero. But he's talking about a punk rock girl. Is there some tie to drugs? I'd be your heroine, I'd be your addiction? Or is he really saying I'd be your hero?
I think it could be a dual meaning. I see it as, and actually that was really funny because I have a note here that says the exact same thing. I was going to pose that question. I don't know. I think it's a dual meaning because you think about that scene and about, people that were in that scene, this was a reality of it. And, Andrew knew that. So maybe it's just an ironic thing that he put in there. And in addition to the fact that it being a heroine or like a strong female hero, that makes sense too, because it's a girl that doesn't necessarily believe in herself, that, hey, you can be, I would, to me, you're my heroine. So you don't believe in yourself, but I believe in you, and you could be that figure for me. So I think it could be dual.
Yeah.
I think it has to be. So it's a very interesting line here because he's saying, I would be your heroine. And to my knowledge, heroine is the female version of hero. And he, as a male, can't necessarily be a heroine. I do not think that a 17-year-old kid who hadn't been out there would use the heroin drug version in this song. I don't think it's a dual meaning. I think that he is rhyming with the word again. And
yeah, but to counter that, just real quick, so, heroin's an addictive drug, so, he could be saying that, I would be your heroine, or you would be addicted to me if you gave me a chance, and then vice versa. I would be something that you would look forward to, something that you couldn't do without. That's why I see it as both.
I don't know. I'm just putting myself in as a songwriter in his spot. I don't think maybe at that spot in life he would be thinking that. He could be. Mm-hmm. I think he wants to say hero, but he's trying to rhyme with again, so it goes to heroin. But I could really, I could see the other part too.
For most of the time I've known this song, 18, 19 years or whatever, I've been thinking he meant an addiction, heroin, the drug. But again, if you look it up on Google, I don't know what the liner notes actually says. Andrew might not even, if it was posed to him, might not have answered that question. Like, well, you can take it how you want it, sort of thing. So
you had your chance to ask him personally. He was right in front of you.
I did, and I could have thought of a million questions about a million songs to ask him, but I just,
Next time.
Did you tell him that you do this podcast? Does he have any awareness of this podcast?
So I didn't, but here's what happened. After the Fire Designs is someone online that makes these logos and things. She made the logo for my podcast, and I asked her to make me a T-shirt that had the logo on it, and then on the back say, a podcast about the music of Andrew McMahon. I didn't want to say an Andrew McMahon podcast because then people would think it was his. It said that on the back, and I wore that both nights. So when I met him the first time, because I met him twice over the weekend, he was standing outside of a brewery we were all at, and the first thing he said to me was he goes, "Cool shirt," and he read it. And so I know he saw the back of my shirt. I didn't bring it up. And then Saturday night we met him after the show. My wife was with me that night, and I was wearing it again, and he definitely saw it. So
we tagged him in a bunch of stuff when we've done episodes about him, but I don't know that he's ever read any of it, or he definitely had not responded or commented.
Yeah.
Or, Instagram could tell you when someone sees what you put.
Okay.
So I don't know that he actually saw it, but we were only complimentary. So
I have heard him say he doesn't do social media, which implies to me that someone does social media for him. Ironically, I've never tagged him on Twitter or Instagram. I've hashtagged his name, but when I had a guest another guest that has a podcast, she actually tagged him on Twitter.
We're going to tag him like everything. We're going to tag Andrew McMahon. We're going to tag Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness.
Andrew McMahon podcast, yeah.
We're going to tag it all. I want him.
Yeah.
We want him to see it.
But he's a super cool dude, and I'm going with my wife on the rock boat in the fall in November.
I heard he's doing that.
Yeah, so we'll see him, Sister Hazel, We the Kings, American Authors, and a handful of other acts. Well, more than a handful, but hopefully we'll get to kind of see him there too and kind of hang out. It seems like it's pretty casual, where he just kind of comes out and hangs out with people, so that's pretty cool. So this is a unique song in the Something Corporate catalog because it's on just about every single Something Corporate release. They re-recorded it after Audio Boxer for Leaving Through the Window. I can't much tell the difference between the two productions. I mean, it's a little bit cleaned up and less raw in the newer version, but there's not much of a difference, in my opinion, between the two. Besides these two, though, it's also track 1 on Songs for Silent Movies EP, which was a Japanese import. There's an acoustic version on the Down the Alley EP, which, as far as I can tell, cannot be found anywhere. Recently, I found a Russian-owned website that will sell them for 15 cents a track, but you have to put in your credit card information. I even bought a Visa gift card with a low dollar amount to try to... They rejected it. It didn't like that. They want a real credit card, so I am not putting my information in there.
No.
And then it was also known as a song called Heroin originally. Heroin with an E on the end. And it was the 7th and final track on what was called the Galaxy Sessions, which is a collection of songs that they did, most of which were never actually released. So they did it before Audio Boxer because it originated as an acoustic song. And there's actually an additional piece in the bridge of lyrics. So it's a little bit different than the original, not much. But it's kind of like, Steve, what you heard on the Instagram live stream. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that, but it has a few extra lyrics in it. Oh, and it's on their greatest hits that was released in 2010 as well, Played in Space. So it's on every one of their releases, I think, except for North. You know, you can find plenty of live versions out on YouTube. There's the Instagram Live we've mentioned. AOL Sessions from 2002, those were great versions. And then you can see him doing it on the Upside Down Flowers tour in 2019, which I was lucky enough to see in February of 2019. If you watch that video versus the AOL Sessions from 2002, 17-year difference, it looks like not only a completely different Andrew, but just a complete different delivery of the song. I mean, it's still energetic for sure, but are you guys fans of Mayday Parade, or are you familiar with Mayday Parade?
I'm familiar, but I'm not. I wouldn't say that I am a fan. Not at all.
Yeah,
Same.
And I would say the same. There's a handful of songs I've heard by them, and some of them that I've liked. I believe this is the only song of all of Andrew McMahon that's been covered by another nationally known artist in the studio. So Derek Sanders, who's the current lead singer of Mayday Parade, recorded an acoustic EP and released it during the pandemic last year. Not only was his version of Punk Rock Princess acoustic on there, Steve, I heard you mention a praise chorus by Jimmy Eat World. There's a version of that on there, and then he covered Saves the Day, and I can't remember the other ones, but there was, I think, 5 or 6 covers. But it's pretty good. It reminds me of Andrew doing it on a piano, only it's not on a piano. He does it on an acoustic guitar. So I would check it out. I would recommend checking it out.
All due respect to Derek Sanders of Mayday Parade, but I listened to it, and I to be honest with you, this particular song, I don't really want to hear anybody else singing it. I mean, I'll sing it.
Fair
at
enough.
Emo band, but I don't know. I was listening to it. I'm like, this sounds like Punk Rock Princess, but just not as good because it's not Andrew McMahon. And I don't know.
Yeah.
You feel like I don't know. He's got this tonality and this sincerity in his voice that's part of what his music, what I'm drawn to about his music. So I didn't really dig it. But going back to his look 17 years ago or however many years ago to now, it's crazy when you see him do that on that tour, the 2019 tour. He's in the tight chinos and his button down shirt. And then you watch the music video and he's got this floppy hair and he's this little kid. I mean, I had looks young-itis when I was a teenager. I always looked younger than I actually was, and he's got this he in that video with the floppy hair and the banging on the piano with one hand. he just looks like a little kid who's having so much fun. And then, listen, he's grown into a distinguished, handsome man. I will say that. But it's funny to watch the distinguished, handsome man in his like tight chinos singing "Punk Rock Princess." I think for me, having seen it all those years ago, I just get a chuckle out of it.
But, you know, I want you to know he still gets up and stomps on his piano and gets on the piano and jumps around.
It's got to light it on fire.
No longer lights it on fire, though. I missed that whole era, apparently. So it sounds like you had a chance to check out the music video. Chris, did you see the music video as well?
Yeah, I did. I watched it several times, and yeah, the floppy hair was definitely something you couldn't miss. It was just the look of that time. You know, it was just
Certainly.
The style that was being portrayed by every single actor and bandmate in that video was early 2000s, and I loved every second of it. I remember wearing the white shirt with the collar outside of, you know, the shirt, the sweater or whatever, you know, you used to wear, but it was a really cool video. I mean, you know, really, really interesting effects, visual effects that they kind of included. I don't know how much this video cost to make, but definitely some money went into making that effect happen with the parents and the people on the bus kind of flickering and disappearing. I love the color of the video too. It's a very, very unique, like dark contrast. I know that was fairly common of that time. You know, the videos for bands, not, you know, similar and maybe even a little bit harder than this band would all go to that darker style, but I think it was just appropriate for the song, and I think it definitely worked. The only thing about this video that I think kind of contrasts what we talked about before is the story they were trying to tell. It didn't necessarily seem like a love story in the video. It seemed more like it was taking us through the journey of a girl that maybe didn't have an identity and was trying to figure out, you know, where she belonged. And when she got to that concert, like it just struck her that, hey, these are the people that I want to be with. This is the music that I love, and I am a punk rock princess. This is going to be what I do from now on. And that's not really a love story. So kind of confusing, but I don't know if you guys disagree.
I think your interpretation of the story, if there was a story in the video, I think your interpretation is spot on. Yeah, it doesn't really tell any kind of love story between a guy pining for a punk rock princess, but it's about a girl trying to find her identity. And I do want to also mention, I totally agree. It's the video visually was very much of that era. It reminds me of so many videos of that time. Coloring, the style, and even the packed club where everybody's jumping up and down. How many videos had that? Newfound Glory, My Friends Over You. Pretty much, you know, without the story, but just everybody kind of jumping up and down in a club. And the other one I thought was kind of funny, and I didn't go back and watch the Newfound Glory video or this other one to kind of confirm, but the other one I couldn't help but think of is Kelly Clarkson, Since You've Been Gone. She's doing the same thing. She's on a stage. She's kind of bouncing around with her microphone, and everybody's like hopping up and down to the music because it's kind of more of a pop rock song, you know, from that era. So maybe a little bit later than something corporate. But
it's funny that the era part of that video that I got out of it is something that neither of you mentioned. But Chris, I know that you'll dig this. There's like the, you know, they're in like the very narrow room. Andrew is just like playing the guitar. I'm sorry, he's playing the piano by himself and singing. That reminds me of like the Finch video when they're like in the basement and he's just like by himself with his long floppy hair. And that video probably came out like the exact same year. It's just like quintessential 2002.
Spot on. It's funny. I was thinking Finch in my head, and I couldn't necessarily place a video, but it's almost like they used the exact same colors and theme. That's such a good comparison.
I wouldn't be shocked if it was the same director. I know a lot of those, you know, bands and artists use the same director for their videos back then.
Both Drive Through paid for both those videos, so maybe they shot them like in this. They're like, all right, Finch and something corporate. You guys report to this one studio, and we're just gonna do 2 of your videos at the same time. Save us some money for the day. Get it all done in 24 hours, and then let's get out of here.
Same extras.
They both have floppy hair, so you guys go that way.
Yeah, same extras probably out in the crowd too.
Yep,
I bet. I don't know if you guys have kids who are Paw Patrol fans, but fun fact, when I was doing research for this song, I did find out that there's a Paw Patrol movie coming out this summer, and supposedly it's going to have this song on the soundtrack, which I find really odd. I somehow found this, it didn't look very official, by the way, this website that said, here's all the pop punk songs that are going to be on the soundtrack. And that was one of them. And there were several others, some of that era and some more recently. But I was thinking, there's no way. Someone's made a mistake or something. But so I would say I'll let you know when I see it, but I'm probably not going to see it. So
Do you think it could be like a cover with like a Disney female voice singing this song?
It would be Bowling for Soup. If it's a cover and it's a cartoon, it's got to be Jared Reddick from Bowling for Soup.
I think they were listed as one of them, come to think of it, because I was thinking, was it their cover of Stacy's Mom, or was it 1985, or you know,
Dude,
one
Jared
of those?
Reddick is Chuck E. Cheese, and he's Phineas and Ferb. I mean, if there's a cartoon and there's pop punk involved, Jared Reddick is involved.
Does he really do the voices for them?
Yeah, he's Chuck E. Cheese. Well, I think most Chuck E. Cheese closed. The one by me did. But yeah, he's the voice of Chuck E. Cheese,
Still
and
open.
they do Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah, Chuck E. Cheese is definitely still open, and I had no idea. I have worked at Chuck E. Cheese about 7 different times in my life. You'd think I would know that, but I didn't. I just learned something about
I couldn't
Chuck E.
tell you the
Cheese.
year that he took over, but 100% he's Chuck E. Cheese recently.
Yeah, I wouldn't recognize his voice or anything, so...
But yeah, I mean, if there's a Paw Patrol movie, my daughter's probably at the stage where she's like about to graduate out. She's 6, so we'd probably see it, but it's at the tail end of Paw Patrol time.
My kids will watch it if it's put in front of them, but they're more daughters, so Barbie, Princess, horses, Spirit just came out of the theater. That's what they want to see.
That
So
Barbie show is the worst show. It's so contrived. It's terrible.
My wife does not like the kids to watch it at all. Probably the same reason.
The ponies too. They're terrible.
Yeah. So some final thoughts here. I admit, this was one of the songs, If You See Jordan was another, that I kind of resisted at first. It's like I heard it at Warped Tour and I was like, that's cool. And I heard the rest of the album and I loved the rest of the album, but Punk Rock Princess was not really one of my top songs for many, many years. It's only been more recently that I kind of come back around to it and thought, hey, this is a cool song. It's, it reminds me of the time back then. I think it's a nostalgic factor partially, but it's also super catchy. It's grown on me over the years is what I'm saying.
I think, for me, and obviously I have a much shorter time with this band and this song, but it's grown on me too. Because I'll tell you what, the first couple times through this album, like I said at the beginning of the show, I didn't pay it much mind. I definitely thought the rest of the album was much, much, much better. Mm-hmm. And there were much more just engrossing songs that you want to listen to over and over again. And this wasn't necessarily one that I wanted to spend a ton of time on. But overall, like you just said, it kind of just something about it. It's sing-songy, it's catchy. Songs like that generally attach to you. I think, especially if it's the type of music in a band you like, they attach to you eventually. It just takes a couple listens.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah, like on our show, we do this thing where we like rank our favorite songs, and sometimes it's like when we did this episode, we did just Leaving Through the Window. So it was like, name your top 3 songs on Leaving Through the Window. And this, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure this was number 1 for me.
It was your number 1.
Yeah, and
I remember that.
It really has to do with the nostalgia. I couldn't tell you that I think this is the best song on that album, but it's my favorite song on the album. And I think if we were to expand ranking it, the segment that we do, to like everything Andrew McMahon, which, Chris, maybe we should do that at some point in time, and we should have Steve on, and we'll do that all together. I still would have to think that Punk Rock Princess is in the top 5 for me, 100% because of the nostalgia.
And I love that album as a whole, like I said. It's not like some of his other albums where I like to listen to it all the way through. I can piecemeal that one. Like I can take this track if I'm in the mood, and Hurricane and when I'm in the mood, and even Globes and Maps when I'm in the mood for a ballad. Unlike some of his other stuff like North and Everything in Transit, I feel like it's a complete album that I want to listen to all the way through. If we were ranking it without really ranking the song, where would you guys, let's rate this song in the catalog? Where would you place this of all the Something Corporate songs that where would you put it? Steve, it sounds like you'd put it near the top, right?
For me personally, there is no better ballad on earth than Constantine, and that is a Something Corporate song. The rest of Something,
so that beats this one.
Yeah, I think that's the only one for me that definitely beats this one. There's probably 2 or 3 others from Leaving Through the Window that I would categorize high. If we're expanding the universe, Everything in Transit was an absolute amazing album. There's probably 5 songs that I could pull out and say that I love them so much. And even some of the stuff after that. But I would say, yeah, for me, like ranking Andrew McMahon, Constantine will always be number one to me, and Punk Rock Princess is probably not too far behind.
Gotcha.
I think not having that nostalgia connection, it's a little bit different for me. I just, again, I see it as what it is, and for me, that's just a little bit better than middle of the road song that I probably look. If there was somebody out there that didn't know this band or never heard anything Andrew McMahon before, it might be one to give them just to kind of dip their toes in the pool and get them kind of acclimated to what. But then again, maybe I wouldn't, because it's not a representation of what this band could be. So, again, probably somewhere towards the middle, maybe a little bit better than that.
Okay. And Chris, you brought this up earlier already, but I was curious to ask if you thought that your kids would enjoy music like this. Maybe not Constantine, but something like Punk Rock Princess. How do you think your older daughter will take this, Chris? Do you think that it's something that'll catch her ear?
It's going to be really interesting to find out. Let's put it that way, because half the music that's out there today, I'm not necessarily sure that I even know what that is. But she has she has eclectic taste. So let's see. I mean, we've had her listen to bands such as Panic at the Disco, which she had no previous experience with, other than what you probably heard 1,000 times on the hockey playoffs or whatever. But I think she's not necessarily someone that likes anything too hardcore. And this music, it's kind of chill music to a certain extent, minus a couple of the faster paced songs. So I think it could be something she could latch onto.
How about your kids, Steve? I mean, is this something that your kid would pick up on, or?
Potentially. I mean, she definitely knows Cecilia and the Satellite. I've played Constantine before, and I think she just giggled at the "Doesn't she look good standing in her underwear" line. But I feel like, just having me as her dad and listening to that pop punk music, I'd say probably some of the more melodic Andrew McMahon piano type songs would be something that a younger girl could pick up on a little bit more. As I said, she's 6, but I feel like she would dig it as she grows up. I don't know, will she like the stuff dad likes, or will she rebel against it?
You're right.
No one could tell, but she will be forced to listen to it. That is for sure.
My daughters, of course, tend toward Taylor Swift and Katy Perry, so Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness more aligns with their type of music than something corporate. So I haven't introduced them to too much something corporate. They've heard it kind of in passing, but it never really sticks with them like Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness stuff does, and they like some of that stuff.
Cool.
You guys have any other final thoughts on the song before we part ways here?
I think we've, as Howard Stern says, we've said it all. I think that it's a great song. I definitely understand everyone's opinion behind it. If you knew it 20 years ago, I feel like it's kind of an earworm that gets stuck in your brain and it will never go away. Listening to it for the first time in the last couple of years, maybe it's not all that different than another, pop punky type single. But for me, I'll always, feel bad for the girls that I made listen to this song along the way.
Me too.
You feel bad for them.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys again for listening. Be sure to subscribe and rate the podcast so more people can find it, and post a comment on one of our socials. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to message me directly or follow in Chris and Steve's footsteps, email me at somethinginthewilderness@gmail.com. And a huge thank you to Wingman Steve and Chris-183 from the High School Never Ends podcast. Where can we find you guys online?
Well, we're on all the socials, and if you want a one-stop shop, you can go to hsnepod.com. That's where you'll find all the socials, a link to everything and anything related to the show.
I highly recommend it. Like I said, I've gone through all the episodes, and my favorite thing is kind of going out and discovering the new music that you guys talk about, but also going back to those artists and albums that I've loved for so long. Not a more critical ear, but just a different perspective after hearing other people's perspectives. I love talking music with people. I love hearing people discuss music. It's been a really cool ride, and I look forward to more.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and we're going to keep doing it. We're having fun. Pop punk is not the biggest genre in the world. It's very niche, but there are a lot of people out there that love it, and we're a couple of enthusiasts that like to discuss it. So thanks for listening. Thanks for putting on this show. We love Andrew McMahon, so I've been enjoying listening to your show as well.
And if you guys ever do a full Andrew McMahon episode or a Jack's Mannequin or something corporate or whatever, keep me in mind. I'd love to come on. So.
You're in. It's done.
Just let me know when. All right. Maybe when I'm done with endings, this can begin.